What happens when law, business, and life collide? Each week on Lead Counsel, your host Tom Tona will take a deep dive into topics related to the law, the business of law, and life. There will be insightful discussions with industry insiders, experts, and thought leaders making significant contributions and meaningful differences in their fields of expertise. Tom is the founder and managing attorney at TonaLaw. He has been a practicing attorney since 1994 and the leader of TonaLaw since it opened in 2001. The goal of this podcast is to provide you with free information on law and the business of law, and to give you actionable tools related to each of these areas. Now, here's Tom.
Welcome to the Lead Counsel Podcast. This is your host, Tom Tona. I'm here with Juliet, my good friend and my marketing coordinator. What's going on, Jules?
Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
You have your coffee?
Yes.
All right.
I'm all ready.
So, Jules, today's guest I'm excited to have him on. His name is Mitch York. Mitch has been an EOS Implementer since 2018. He's facilitated more than 300 full-day EOS sessions with leadership teams and entrepreneurial companies. He's a professional certified coach and has worked with hundreds of companies across all industries in that capacity before moving into EOS full-time. Mitch has had a successful career in media, e-commerce as president of LendingTree in its startup phase at one point. LendingTree is a huge company. They're still around, right, Mitch?
Oh, yeah, very much so.
Yeah. They're a big publicly held company. And he was a pioneer of internet publishing when he launched and ran one of the first and largest tech media websites. Lastly, but not least, he's got an MBA from Columbia, which is no small feat, and a BA from Northwestern. Welcome, Mitch. What's going on, buddy?
Thank you. It's good to be doing this with you. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. We've been talking about it for a while. So just jumping right in, EOS from the book Traction, right? The Entrepreneurial Operating System. Funnily enough, I don't know if that's a word. Funnily enough, when I first cracked Traction open, I couldn't read it. I don't know why. I was stuck. I couldn't get past like the first 10 pages. And then once my business reached a certain pain point, maybe that's probably the proper word is pain point or growth point. Let's call it growth point, be positive. But once we reached a certain growth point, then I cracked open Traction and the lights went off and I was like, aha, the angels sang. And I was like, this is what I need. Traction's what I need. But also knowing myself, I also knew I would never be able to implement it from the book. Everybody says, I'm going to try to do that. That's not a realistic picture in my mind frame, knowing my personality and probably the personality of most visionaries, right? So Juliet, you had a question, which was, how did we find EOS and why? I found it through the book Traction. And then I was like, all right, I'm just hiring somebody, right? I have a big LinkedIn presence and I started having you headhunt for me EOS implementers across the country. And lo and behold, Mitch, you're out of Sayville, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So Mitch is 5 minutes from my office. So it was a natural fit because I'm like, one, if there's any God forbid scenarios, he's just going to come in. It's 5 minutes away if I have something that's a crisis. And two, I really wanted somebody that if we were going to run these offsites, that it would be just simple, right? Right in Melville. Plus, my deciding factor was actually Mitch's experience, right? I looked at the fact that he was certified. I wanted somebody certified. And the fact that he had been doing it for, how long have you been an EOS coach, Mitch?
Oh, gosh. I guess about 6 years now.
Yeah. So for me, that was the deciding factor, right? All the pieces came together. We met Mitch. What's that introductory day called that you do where it's basically a free consultation?
Yeah, the cleverly named 90-minute meeting. Because we couldn't think of a better name for it.
So, but I'll tell you what, that 90-minute meeting was so cohesive and it made so much sense. And it was free, right? Like you didn't charge me for that. Mm-hmm. And basically just laid out, okay, you've read the book Traction. This is what you can expect. And so the decision was very easy. And then we booked our first session. So Mitch, why don't you lay out the 2-year plan and what that would look like for most companies that are listening to this, because a lot of people are going to listen to this and go, I am interested. Let's talk nuts and bolts about what does a 2-year EOS implementation plan look like?
Yeah, sure, I can do that. And it's interesting, just your perspective of you read the book, you tried to read the book, and it wasn't really the right time, and then certain things happened, and you opened it again, and that old expression is when the student is ready, the teacher arrives, right? I mean,
Yep.
we've all seen that in our lives. So when entrepreneurial companies hit a ceiling of any kind, organizational, departmental, individual, or all three, or in some combination, and they can't break through that ceiling, the pain has to be great enough to motivate action. So when business owners are at that point, and even if they haven't read the book, somehow they become aware of this thing called the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And we have a 90-minute, if they're introduced to me, I give them 90 minutes of my time and I show them the tools of EOS, and here they all are. And some people want to implement it themselves. Other people want help in doing it. Many people do it on their own, and many people use someone like me. So the process is that the first day is this thing called Focus Day, and it's a full day, about 7 hours. And we take a leadership team and we teach them fundamental tools of EOS. I'm not going to get deeply into it, but there are tools like an accountability chart laying out the functions of a business, the roles of those functions, and then who should be in which seat. We create something called rocks, which are 90-day goals, but not too many, that are very specific and measurable and attainable and realistic and time-bound. We teach something called the meeting pulse. Meetings are very important, and most people don't like meetings, and a lot of people who are founders really hate meetings. But we have a meeting format and a template that creates masterful meetings that people really like. It's called a level 10 meeting, because when people rate their effectiveness of the meeting, it gets closer and closer to 10. And then finally, in Focus Day, we create a company scorecard where we take a handful of the most important measurables that are going to move the needle, and we start tracking them. But again, not too many, a handful, half a dozen, 8, 10 maybe. And that's Focus Day. And then if the team is motivated to move further, and by the way, we don't have any contracts with any of our clients. Our clients move ahead if they want to. And we also don't collect any money unless our clients are happy with the result of the session. They're not happy, they say, get lost, you bum. And that's the end.
Right.
So we guarantee that our results are going to be good, and we stand by that guarantee. So we do our Focus Day, and then about a month later, we do the first of 2 vision building days, where through a series of exercises, we answer 8 fundamental questions that companies need to answer. We consolidate it into a 2-page strategic plan called the Vision Traction Organizers. So we figure out what their core values are, what their core focus or mission is, what their long-range goal is. We call it a 10-year target, kind of the big, hairy, audacious goal, where they want to be. Their marketing strategy in a very consolidated way. Their 3-year picture, where do they see the business in 3 years? Their 1-year plan. To get to 3 years, what's the next year look like? What are the up to 7 most important goals of the company? Their rocks, what are they going to do in 90 days so they're on track for 1 year? And what are their issues? So we catalog the issues list. We start, and it's funny, I always ask people in our 90-minute meeting, do you have an issues list? And I get a faraway look in their eye. What's an issues list? I not ironically say it's a list of your issues, because if you don't have if it's not written down, if it's just in your head, it's not a good place to store issues, and it's not a good platform from which to solve issues. So we do that. We do 2 vision building days, about a month apart, and then we meet every 90 days in kind of execution mode. We're just executing on the plan. But we get together every 90 days and we take a step back. We see how we did the prior 90 days. We set new objectives for the next 90 days. I teach at least 1 new tool. And we spend a good amount of time solving issues that have accumulated that haven't been solved. And it's a key thing for leadership teams to take that time out of the business every 90 days. And once a year for 2 days, we do a 2-day annual meeting where the first day is about team health and strategic planning. And the second day is about the next quarter, the next 90 days. So we go through this cycle 2 times, the quarterly annual cycle twice. And then we say to leadership teams, congratulations, cap and gown without the cap and gown, but you're graduated if you want to be graduated. And many of them have got it by then. And some want us to continue facilitating their quarterlies and annuals, in which case we do. So that's the 2-year arc of EOS. And companies do it if they want to. They're not compelled to, because as I said, nothing in writing. So it's kind of, I try and take all the risk.
Yeah, speaking from the client perspective, I mean, one of the things, there's so much to the experience that I've had with you. That's why I was so excited to have you on, because one of the things I try to do with the podcast is really provide value for anybody that's listening, right? And I know that predominantly I have a large sector of lawyers and law firms that are, let's say, somewhere along the journey to where I am now, or have, some of them are way ahead, but still necessarily could use the tools that we're doing. Like our level of sophistication and our revenue level are at a certain point, and some people are ahead of us in one area and not in the other. One of the things that's been magical about working with you and the EOS system is, and I was taking notes as you were talking about it, is the level 10 meeting. Holy cow, is that a powerful tool, right? Yeah, I have always hated meetings. I hated them. You would go into them unprepared, no agenda. I knew that there were people on my team that hated them. And now to see how effective they are with all of the other EOS tools, the rocks, right? Rocks are major initiatives in my mind. Like when we put something down as a rock and I see this stuff getting done and I'm like, wait a minute, there's like 2-3 rocks per person on my leadership team and we're getting them done. And I already see the amount of propellant that's giving the business. It's like pouring rocket fuel, to use other traction terminology, but it's literally such an accelerant to growth, right? In a controlled way, my stress is down lower than it's ever been, but we're growing faster than we have. So it's kind of a crazy, magical, simple system, but not so simple, right? What always appears simple is decades of things being put together and implementation. I mean, Gino Wickman developing this, I don't know if he ever foresaw what it is now. I've never heard him speak about it, but it's kind of crazy to see the companies that are implementing it, friends of mine that are currently doing it. In addition to me, there's an 8-figure law firm out of Washington, D.C. There's an 8-figure law firm out of Palm Beach, Florida. Both of them are at the same stage in EOS that we are right now, which is great because I have aspirations to go to 8 figures, right? And then I'm hoping you're going to help me get there, which I think you will. So yeah, the meetings with you have been instrumental. The level 10 meeting tool is just fantastic. One of the things that I love is the simplicity of the IDS framework, right? So, and listen, hopefully you're good talking about all of this because I know all of it's like proprietary traction stuff, but if not, we could always cut it out.
Oh, no. There's very little that's proprietary about EOS.
I have fallen in love. It's the biggest part of any level 10 meeting is the 1 hour of IDS, right? And it's stating the issue, discussing the issue, solving the issue.
Right.
And holy crap, is it effective, Mitch? Like, I mean, we knocked off yesterday, Jules. How many issues did we knock off in our level 10 yesterday? You just came on to the leadership meeting.
Yeah, like 13 of them.
No, like 16 out of 17 issues in 1 hour, Mitch.
That's very good.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
It was a lot.
So the beauty of it is, and I'm going to have you do the framework in a second because I want people to hear why it's so effective. The beauty of it is it's like stick and move. You state the issue, you discuss the issue, you solve the issue. And here's the other beauty. Because I've got this, I don't know if it's OCD or ADD, whatever you call it.
Probably a little bit of both.
Probably a little bit of both. But so Janira just started attending and joined the Integrator Masterclass.
Yeah, that's great.
And Janira was like, oh, here's a new rule. You're not allowed to talk about the meeting after the meeting. If we took an issue, we discussed it, we solved it, it's done. And I was like, I got the tremors with that statement because I'm the guy that always revisits everything. And I guess as an entrepreneur, maybe it's a fear thing. I don't know. You could probably diagnose it better than me, but the inclination to want to keep talking about shit that's already solved. So that little rule she implemented yesterday, 2 people threw up in my face after, and I just had to move on. So for anybody that's listening, break down IDS the way you break it down and why it's so effective for everybody.
IDS stands for identify, discuss, solve. So when most people get together in a meeting and there's an issue that somehow floats to the surface, everyone kind of gets tunnel vision through a combination of fear, blame, defensiveness, and all they want to do is get rid of it. It's sort of like a terrible virus has entered the room and you want to spray Lysol or something to that. I don't know. Do people use Lysol anymore? Anyway, we did it. So the idea is you have an issue, and what you really want to do is slow things down. So once you've identified the couple of issues you're going to focus on, the first thing is we need to identify the root cause of the issue or the root causes, not the symptoms. Because a lot of times people will put a Band-Aid on a symptom and it doesn't make it go away. So we have to dig down and say, what if there's a problem? And we say, well, just do this or that. What's at the root of it? Several people could have different opinions. That's okay, as long as they state them once and clearly. And then here's what I think is going on. Someone else has a different opinion. Fine. Then when the root causes are identified, then we can discuss it a little bit. Debate, discuss what's going on here, put a little more color commentary in it. And teams know when they've discussed things enough. They're starting to get becoming circular. And someone will say, yeah, we just went around in a circle. Let's not go in a circle twice. Nothing to be gained. Now let's see if we can solve it. And solve has a very particular meaning. Solve means that we are going to create one or more to-dos, a to-do, an action item with a time frame, which is going to be 1 week or 2 weeks, the next level 10 meeting or the one after that. If someone says, oh, here's the to-do and it's going to take 6 weeks, that's not a to-do, it's a rock. And we can't add rocks in the middle of a quarter. We can say, well, if we can't add a new rock, what can we do in the next week or two to at least improve the situation, stop the bleeding a little bit until we get to being able to handle it? So that's IDS. And when we have our to-do list, and each to-do has a name next to it of the person that's going to get it done. So we know who that person is. And the following week in our level 10 meeting, there's a 5-minute space in the agenda for a review of last week's to-do list. And our objective is to complete 90% of our to-dos every week. If we do that, we're on a very good glide path to solving our issues permanently. So that's IDS.
Super effective tool for anybody that's listening that's doing leadership. I mean, the plague of issues and not having that framework for decades. I mean, I wish I had this 20 years ago. My stress level's never been lower. And to see the major initiatives, and I'm talking my team, Mitch, we don't dream small, we dream super big, right? And so our leadership team is expanding. We just had a new managing attorney come on. She'll be at the next one. Jules will be at the next one. So we're up to 7 or 8 people now on the leadership team. But the magic of all of these things coming together, I mean, I look forward to these meetings like I never thought I'd look forward to an hour and a half meeting before. And Jules, real quick. So you've been on how many meetings so far?
I've only been on 3 meetings so far, and I am pretty new to the leadership and management team, but from working at the firm for a couple of years now, I can just tell how fast issues get resolved now. And it's funny because you said you take an approach where you slow everything down and look at the root causes. But by slowing things down, it has accelerated our effectiveness of solving issues, creating those to-dos, having that accountability so our team can get stuff done. And just having that extra accountability of knowing, okay, Tuesday, 9 a.m., we're going to go over everything. It makes you want to get everything done the week before. That way you're prepared for the next week to come. Because especially as our team grows, there's always going to be new issues and new topics to discuss. So
no doubt.
It just helps so much. And it's crazy to see the behind the scenes now.
Yeah, you just said something that my martial arts instructor, Emerson, has been saying for years. You slow things down. Slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, man, we knocked out 16 issues yesterday. And I walked off that. Everybody rated it a 9 out of 10.
It was a great meeting yesterday.
It was a great meeting. I mean, we just moved the needle on so many things. So, man, Mitch, I mean, look, I'll tell you another tool we've implemented right away, right? The People Analyzer. Mitch, explain for anybody that's listening what the People Analyzer is, the purpose of it, what it does in practice.
The key to, there are 6 key components to having a great business. People is one of the 6. You need great people to have a great company. And so what is a great person? A great person is someone, it has 2 dimensions. It's someone who is what we call a right person. That means that they embody the core values of your company. So you have to have core values. That's part of our process is to, even if you think you do, we interrogate your core values to the point where you know that they are, and sometimes they change. So you have to embody the core values. That's right person. And you have to be effective in your job. That's right seat. Sometimes you can have a person that you love because they walk and talk the core values, but they're not effective in their job. That's the right person in the wrong seat. Sometimes you have the reverse problem. You have someone who's great at what they do, but they make everybody else nuts because the world revolves around them. They're not a team player. They make their own hours, whatever it is, but they're not living the core values. That's a wrong person in the right seat. So right person, wrong seat, wrong person, right seat. Until you have as an organization all the right people in the right seats, no one's going to have enough time to do their jobs the way they want and optimize the success of the company. So one of the things that EOS has as a tool is something that we call a quarterly conversation. Quarterly conversation is a conversation of about 30 minutes between a manager and their direct report. It takes place every 90 days. It's not a performance review. It's a conversation, ideally held outside the office. And the tool that we use to get the conversation going is this thing called the People Analyzer. So if you can imagine a single sheet of paper with columns, like a spreadsheet, with columns across the top. And each column is a core value. So core values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What we're doing is we are giving that person a rating of how they've performed on those core values over the past 90 days. And there are 3 ratings. A plus means they've exhibited that core value most of the time. Plus minus means they've exhibited that core value some of the time. And a minus means that they have rarely exhibited that core value. And for each core value, there is a bar, just a hurdle. That's the hurdle point that you need to be at or above in order to be a right person. Usually it's going to be a plus or a plus minus. It's almost always going to be a plus, actually. It's obviously never going to be a minus.
That was going to be my question, yeah, because for us, we have our core values, and I put plus next to everything what the whole team did, and I'm like, that's kind of what our bar is for this stuff, so it is what it is. It is what our bar is, yeah.
That's fine. You know, like sometimes there might be a firm that has like something related to like being innovative, you know, or something like that. And maybe that's a plus minus because in some jobs, we're not looking for innovation. We're looking for really good execution of a system that's already been established. Okay. So plus minus for that one. But mostly it's going to be a plus. And if you rate someone below the bar, you actually owe them 3 examples of why. Because if you just arbitrarily say, if it's a plus, and you say, you know, my gut tells me you were a plus minus in the last 90 days, that's unfair to that person. Like, what are you talking about? Well, there was that one time, and you owe them 3 examples. So you're constantly thinking about that. So that's the right person part on the people analyzer. Then 3 extra columns with the letters G, W, and C next to them. What does that mean? Gets it, wants it, capacity to do it. Now, this is not a plus minus. This is a yes or no. So does that employee, based on their performance in the past 90 days, show that they get it? They understand their job in their bones. They understand the complete scope of their job. Wants it is exactly what it says. They show up wanting to do a great job. Capacity to do it means a couple of things. They have the skills, the skill set to do it. And they also have the emotional, physical, intellectual capacity to do that job. And they have the time to do that job. That's capacity. So to use just a random example, if I want to work at Home Depot and they require their employees to be able to lift 50 pounds, and I can only lift 30 pounds, I don't have the physical capacity to do that job. If I'm in an environment that's incredibly high stress, I'm a commodities trader on the commodities exchange, and I don't like stress. I can't handle high stress jobs. Well, then I don't have the capacity to do that job emotionally. So the answer to GWC has to be yes, yes, yes for that person to be a right person. Let's say that someone is below the bar on one of the core values and they're a no on G, W, and or C. That doesn't mean that they're fired. It means there's a conversation to say, how do we get you to be at or above the bar on core values? How do we get you to be yes, yes, yes in the next 90 days on GWC? Let's create a plan. And then me, as a manager, I'm going to coach them up to be able to do that. If someone is below the bar several quarters in a row, it's my indication that, hey, they're not in the right seat. Or if they're below the bar for core values, then they're not a right person. And then at least I know we've had the conversation. It's not a secret. So the people analyzer is just this really super simple, perfect tool to have a great conversation with an employee that shows them what they need to do to be a right person in the right seat.
Yeah, it is simple. And, again, our firm. So we're like heavy on the implementation side. Like, I can't tell you how fast we've just kind of taken to this whole model. We were struggling with a decision. You have a high earner who took you from point A to point B. And the old saying, what got you here won't get you there, right? So we had something occur since we last met where what normally would have been an agonizing decision took maybe 5 minutes to make. Team voted on it in the team meeting, and action was taken because it was no longer the right person in the right seat, right? So the simplicity of these tools, if people are unsure whether the investment in EOS is worth it, I can't emphasize enough to talk to somebody like Mitch, do the 90 minutes. And because there's no contractual obligation, and they're even telling you, if you don't like it after the first implementation, don't pay me. Don't pay me. I mean, you do a question at the end of every group meeting that we have. What's the question? You ask us to rate it, but you ask a series of 3 questions.
Yeah. I'll ask you if you had a key takeaway or a key aha, what was it? That's the first question. Then I'll ask you, did the session meet your expectations? Yes or no? And at the beginning, I ask you what your expectations are. And then the last question I ask is, rate the effectiveness of our work together today on a scale of 1 to 10. And that's it. So, if everybody said, that kind of sucked, Mitch, it was like a 4. I would be deeply embarrassed and red, and I would have not done my job. Fortunately, I've 300 plus sessions. I haven't had that occur, but it's always a possibility.
I don't think it is. Having sat in with you and the way in which you do what you do. And again, I'm not new to the coaching space, right? I've talked about it all the time on LinkedIn, but I've been working with coaches for the better part of 12 to 15 years now. EOS and you came along at exactly the point that I was ready and we needed it as a business. And you're super effective. Your communication style, the lessons that you impart, the fact that you do multiple reps, right? Some of the session is spent repeating the prior session because you're kind of doing the reps with us and drilling it into us as a leadership team. And the team has taken to it like fish to water. Every single person on it has just, we live in 90.io. We like
That's
90.
software. Yeah, that's the software that we use to help put all the EOS stuff in one container.
I love how organized it is.
Yeah, it's super organized. It's super simple. It gives I know Juliet's been in there putting issues down and we've been working through some of those things, but I don't know how comfortable you are with me discussing costs of EOS. I personally think it's worth talking about because as somebody who's really financially savvy myself, and I'm not bragging, I'm just saying look, it's my job as the head of a company to allocate financial resources. I think the total spend per year is $35,000.
That's about right. Yep.
I will tell you that I never forget to bring you a check. It is the best. It is, again, I don't look at things as cost. I look at it as investment. It's either a wise investment or it's not. And I'm not stupid with investing, especially the financial resources of my business. The ROI is immediate. The ROI is significant, right? So as somebody who analyzes everything and everybody in an organization from an ROI perspective, look, I love Jules as a friend, as a coworker, platonically, obviously, but I know her family. We're family friends. The ROI is there with Jules, right? It's why I increased her recently significantly beyond what normal raises occur because she's doing real stuff. I would never spend $35,000 a year if the ROI wasn't there. And man, you deliver. You deliver. Not just you. The methodology, the system, it all delivers. So much so that I enrolled Janira in the Implementer Masterclass immediately. She went to one thing and she came back and she's like, it's $5,000 or whatever it was. And I was like, okay, good, done, bye. So I'll tell you why. When she came back from that masterclass, she made my life even easier. She came back 5 levels higher than when she left. It was crazy, this stuff that she was doing. And I haven't even had a chance to sit down with her. She's already implementing it, didn't check with me on any of it. And it's moving the needle. Right? So for anybody that's listening, I would never waste $40,000 on anything. The ROI is immediate and palpable. And Mitch, as an implementer, if anybody has questions, Mitch is an open book. He doesn't charge you for the consultation. You get on. If you're skeptical, be skeptical. The system is what it is. And you're not anchored to it. If it's not for you, stop. Don't even pay for it, you're saying, right? It's win-win. Right. I've never seen a business. Look, my business does that too, right? We have clients, 99% of what we do in all of our silos is contingency-based. And we tell clients, listen, try us. If you're not happy, like my no-fault clients, we do the same thing. Give me 10 files, give me 1,000 files. If you don't see the results, leave. You don't have to send me any more files. It doesn't cost you anything.
Right. That's a great comfort to clients. And what you're saying, a couple of things were interesting. One is that you were ready for it. And companies that decide to do EOS, I can't, I'm a decent enough salesperson, but EOS can't be sold. It has to be pulled in by the company because they are ready for it. All I can do is, be an educator, say, here's what it is, if and when you're ever ready for it. So I think that's a key thing. There's no, it's not sold, it's bought. And a lot of people say that, but it's really true. No one's going to start doing this. Then the other thing that's interesting is no one wants another meeting. And I want to tell people, when I say to people, you're going to have weekly 90-minute leadership team meetings. And ultimately, as your company grows, you're going to have weekly meetings within your departments. So that's that. Then I say, we're going to meet 5 days a year. You're going to take 5 days a year out of the business. And a lot of people are like, there's no way we can take that much time out of the business. And then with a couple of clients, I started doing a little bit of back of the envelope math to say, let's think about this. Like if you took 5 days, like how many work days are there in a year for your company? It varies, but maybe there are 240 or something. So we got 5 that we got to take for EOS. Okay. And then we're going to take 90 minutes a week for your level 10 meeting. That's probably the equivalent of another 10 full work days or something like that. So now we're up to 15 and a few other things here and there. And so maybe you're going to take 20 days of working on the business instead of in the business out of your 240, about 8% of your time. You're telling me that you don't have 8% of your time to work on the business. If that's true, there are bigger issues than, that I can help you with.
And that means they're not ready for it, right? Like,
well, if you as an owner say, I don't have time, I take you at your word.
Right.
You don't.
Right.
So, and if you're not going to work on the business at least 8% of the time, you're going to spend a lot more time trying to fix things as they go wrong.
Well, working in the business too, right? Like you're going to just drown. And so like talk about law firms specifically, because I know there'll be lawyers listening to this go, this doesn't work for law firms. I'm like, really? Because it works for me. And we're running a 40-person law firm right now.
Yeah. Well, law firms, there are types of law firms where it's the eat what you kill. And because they're professionals, they feel like, hey, lawyers, doctors, accountants, other engineering firms. It's interesting. I have a client several clients who are engineering firms and where they were trained to be engineers of one type or another. But they're leaders and part owners of a company. And they realize that, wow, we may be engineers, but that doesn't preclude us from leading a company to reach our goals. Maybe we have to own maybe there's a seat we need to own. I'm an engineer, but maybe I need to own, at least for a while, the marketing seat or the finance seat or whatever it is until we reach a point where we can get a finance professional or a marketing professional. Because if no one does this, I have a perfect example as a client I have. It's a chain of optometric eye care locations, about 14 or 15 around the New York metro area. And our leadership team, with the exception of one person, is a room full of optometrists. Well, they're optometrists. And you know what? From our first meeting, they realized that different people are going to have to step up out of what's comfortable to fulfill these different functions. And as they did that, they became kind of like really interested in it. It added a new dimension to their life when they realized that they could do it. So I have an optometrist who's an integrator of this company, and she's the first time we met. I was talking, virtually talking Greek to her, but there was something in her that stepped up and said, I'll do it. And she's great at it. And I see her in the meetings take control of her seat. And I just want to, if I wore a hat, I'd be constantly tipping it because she's doing what integrators are supposed to do. And so is everybody else. So you have to have a certain open-mindedness and an ability and a desire to take the time to work on your business if you want to be successful in your business. And, EOS is just a tool for that.
Yeah. And if you're not, then you really just have a job, right? Like that's what Michael Gerber used to say, that you either have a business as a law firm owner or you just have a good paying job, right? Because there's only so much you can do in an 8-10 hour day. So for me, I've gone pure entrepreneurial. If I was 10% technician before EOS, I am 0% technician now, right?
Vision.
Oh, and by the way, one of the other magical things that happened, because again, the beauty of this is I can talk about our side of the experience as well. We do the accountability chart, and I go, that's why my stress level is so high. I'm in a seat that I cannot service right as the managing attorney, and B, because I can only give a couple of hours a week, the division is suffering. What did I do? I hired a managing attorney. She started yesterday, right? There is one more silo that I need to get Janira out of. Janira is sitting in a seat that Janira shouldn't be in because she is such a fantastic integrator that I just need her to integrate. So talk about the role of visionary and integrator and how they work together, because I have seen a dramatic impact between the stuff that Janira and I now do since starting the EOS system and really diving into and embracing the implementation of it.
A visionary is often a founder. Like founders, entrepreneurs tend to be visionaries. And we're not into titles so much as we are functions. So the accountability chart gets away from titles because titles create politics. You can have titles, separately from our tools. But a visionary is the person in an organization who embodies the culture, has an idea about the long-term vision of the company, is often a phenomenal salesperson, likes the big picture, not the small picture. And has lots and lots of ideas for the business. That's typically the traits of a visionary. The integrator is a person who loves the details, who's a great communicator and can take the vision of the visionary and actualize it through the other seats on the accountability chart in the organization. Like, here's the vision, here's what we need to execute, here's the path from vision to execution. And that person makes all of these functional areas work together as seamlessly as they can. The key thing is to have an integrator. Oftentimes there isn't. Visionary and integrator are often one person, especially early on in a company's life, where if the integrator has a visionary mentality, there's lots of like wild swings. Like people come in on Monday and have no idea what to expect. Like, oh man, here we go. She's going to like tell us to zig. We've been zagging and here we're going to go in a different direction. Buckle up. And when there's a healthy integrator visionary relationship, the integrator is the filter and the pushback to say, hey, we've got our rocks for this quarter.
Right.
Sorry, Tom, we've got our rocks.
And honestly, Janira is the perfect person for that role because her and Tom, they just have such a long-standing relationship. Yeah. And it's funny because a lot of the times I feel like they are the same person, but also Janira keeps Tom in check. And it's like, all right, calm down. Like, we can only do so much at once. I know personally, when I started in the marketing position, Tom and I are very similar in the ways that we're like, go, go, go. We have big visions, big hopes, big dreams. And Janira would be like, all right, let's actually make this realistic. What can we do first? What can we get done in the next couple of weeks or months? And
you need a strong integrator to be able to stand up to a strong visionary and be able to push back and say no.
And that's Janira.
Listen, if Tom owns the business and Tom says, Janira, this is what it's going to be, like Janira could, walk out the door, or she'll say, I'll find a way. And sometimes I'll find a way. But other times it's a negotiation. And for people who may be visionaries and thinking about hiring an integrator, I recommend a book called Rocket Fuel. It's part of the Traction Library. And there's even an online component where if you go to rocketfueluniversity.com, there's an assessment that you can take. It takes a couple minutes to complete to give you a sense of, am I a natural integrator or a natural visionary or somewhere in between, so that the visionaries out there can see like, wow, I'm really like hyper visionary. I really need an integrator if I want people to stick around and I don't want to drive them crazy. And how do I do that? So it's a worthwhile exercise to go through.
Yeah, I've been very blessed because Janira has been with me like 19 years. We just did a podcast with Janira, right? And I think I ended the podcast with, for law firm owners, if you don't have a Janira, you need a Janira, right?
Yeah, it's not my Janira.
Just not my Janira. And that's why I pay Janira in the stratosphere that I pay her, right? And I tell her daily, and there's non-financial compensation because the investment that I make in her, she knows no one else is doing that at the law firm space that we're playing in. I've been lucky, been 19 years with her. But here's the fortunate part. Had I been ready for EOS and her not ready, we were not doing it. And so I actually want to revisit something I said. It wasn't that the pain was so great that I had to have EOS. It was the drive for growth was so great, because on January 1st, at 5:00 in the morning, I was up writing out my plan for the year. And I said, I want to go to here with the law firm. Janira wants to go here with the law firm. We're on the same page, but I know what I need. And right now I need something more. And that was EOS, right? So yeah, there were pain points. We definitely didn't know how to run meetings the way we do now. We definitely didn't solve issues the way we do now. But I knew we needed that in order to get to 8 figures, right? Like I had this 8-figure goal, and it was beyond that. It was doing really great things. It was doing really great things, trying cases, taking verdicts, that type of stuff. So Mitch, I appreciate all the time. I know you're very busy.
Never too busy for you, Tom.
I appreciate that. And I know that people are going to be listening to this and they'll probably contact you. One of the questions I always ask my guests is, what would you point to as your biggest needle mover in your career to date?
Well, I guess the biggest needle mover I had was I was a professional executive coach for 20 years after my corporate life. And I worked with entrepreneurial firms in all different industries, but primarily in wealth management, which there's a story behind it, but not important for right now. So owners of wealth management businesses. And about 7 years ago, one of my clients just offhand mentioned that they had their EOS Implementer coming in that week. And I like, what's an EOS Implementer? Oh, Traction, what's that? And he said, yeah, you get a lot. You should read this book. And I ordered it that minute and read it the next day, I think in one sitting. And unlike Tom's first go at it, mine was like, I was glued to it. And at the end, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But I think I laughed. And I'm like, wow, this is my future. I'm holding it in my hand. This is it.
It all clicked for you.
And I wonder if this EOS thing, I wonder how people make a career out of helping other companies do this. I wonder if there's a way to do it. And lo and behold, they were looking for folks like me to help do this. EOS Worldwide was, and that began the path. The biggest needle mover to me is finding something way later than I wish I had found it that was the thing that's the most useful thing to people that I work with and for, and the most useful vehicle for me to do what I'm pretty good at. So that was it. That needle has moved all the way to the right. I have a full tank, and I guess it must be electric with an infinite charge because it never seems to go the other direction. So
yeah, that's amazing.
I'm pretty pleased.
But you know what's amazing about what you just said is that Traction is evergreen. As far as I've been observing thus far, the book, there's no version 2. It's Traction, and Traction is the same. Maybe it changes when AI comes out, but it's evergreen, right?
Yeah.
Like the principles are so universal that you have podiatrists, you have optometrists, and you got TonaLaw all executing the same system. And the other beautiful part of it is it's adaptable, personalized, and modifiable for each organization, right? So
everybody interprets it. I mean, the thing is, like the tools are the tools. They're the same. I teach them the same way every time. We implement them. The variables are the businesses, but I have to just say that we don't modify it. And that's part of the beauty of it. If I have a company that says, oh yeah, we have a level 10 meeting and Mitch, you taught us the agenda, but we're not going to do this piece of it. We're not going to do the 5 minutes of good news because that's a waste of time, or whatever it might be. And I'm not the EOS police, but I will say to them, like, if you're not going to do it and you're going to ignore the tens of thousands of companies
that do it that way,
done this purely, like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? And I will get on my purity soapbox. We don't add ingredients to this. We don't say, hey, if we just add a fried egg to this, it'll be much better. We just don't do it. The recipe is the recipe. Thank you very much. So I want to emphasize that.
Yeah, the tools are definitely, we don't modify the tools. What I like about it is it's adaptable, meaning the KPI data, you will evolve, right? So you may look at it. You may look at it over time and it may change because the things you thought you should be focusing on, you shouldn't be, right? So that's what I love about it, is that it's a living, breathing thing in terms of execution, in terms of how you execute. The tools are all the same. So
your measurables can change quarter to quarter. And again, you may exactly as you say, certain things that used to be important are not important now. Great. Have different measurables. You might find that there's a core value that in your core values that served you well in the past. And you know what? It's outlived its usefulness. Change it.
Right.
But still have your core values.
Of course. Yes.
Very important. Very important. It's not, we don't want to gloss over that. But you're exactly right.
Yeah. Mitch, I want to thank you. I want to conclude the episode because you've spent an hour with us. And I want to say thank you, really. Meeting you at the time we met you has been fortuitous. And it really count you among the blessings in my life. Like, it's been so great and fun working with you. Like, it's just a great ride. Tell people how best to contact you. Is it LinkedIn? Is it email? Like, how can people reach out to you and learn more about you and EOS?
You can certainly look me up on LinkedIn. My email is just mitchell.york@eosworldwide.com. And either of those should do pretty well. And I'm always happy to talk to entrepreneurs. It's a great thing. I grew up in an entrepreneurial household. It's always been in my blood. So founder stories are endlessly fascinating to me. And if I can help, I will. And Juliet, I am looking forward to seeing you at our next meeting.
I was just going to say, I'm really looking forward to going.
She's my marketing maven. I was like, how many times am I going to put delegations to Juliet on my 90 without Juliet being part of this meeting? She runs the entire marketing show.
So now I'm on it.
Welcome to the team.
So now she's on it.
I'm taking to the ground running. I'm ready.
She's ready. Mitch, thank you so much. We'll put links to EOS, your specific LinkedIn profile on the show notes so people know how to reach out to you. And for anybody that's listening, you can click like and subscribe and share the podcast anywhere podcasts are distributed. Just Google TonaLaw and you'll find all you want to know about us on all the social media platforms as well. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mitch.